I'm here today with Vincent Chaperon of Dom Pérignon, and we're talking about the new P2 release of Dom Pérignon 2000. Okay, Vincent, I just really we're tasting it with the original release of Dom Pérignon 2000, and I'm just really trying to get you to explain why these wines are different and what the whole P2 thing is about with Dom Pérignon.
So all Dom Pérignon vintages are going in their life when they are kept in the bottle with the lees inside. They are going through three different stages we call plenitude, and we learned that from the past, from the previous generation of winemaker. And our goal and ambition as winemaker is to catch the moment where the vintage are reaching those plenitude. The plenitude means a stage of higher expression of our wine, our vintage, a moment in their life where they are expressing something very special we want to share with you, with the consumer. And each plenitude has its own meaning. The first plenitude is really a moment where we are looking for the harmony.
Okay, and we reached that point with the 2000 vintage when?
In 2008.
2008,
yeah,
so
after 7 years of maturation, of contact with the lees. And we need this time of maturation at Dom Pérignon before everything should be organized in an harmonious way in the palate and on the nose. Dom Pérignon is a champagne which really need a long time of maturation. Time is in the equation.
okay, so now we're tasting that original release of 2000, which, as you said, was disgorged in 2008 and then released 12 months.
Disgorged in 2007 and released in 2008. Yeah.
Thank you. And with the P2 version we're tasting today, this is not on the market yet.
No.
It's going to be
Within
available.
Months, yeah, a few months,
Right.
June certainly.
And this, when was this P2 disgorged?
It was disgorged last year, 1 year ago. Yeah.
Okay. Now, am I right in thinking that you're now giving the second release of Dom Pérignon, you're giving it a little bit more time after disgorgement before release? And if that's correct, if I'm correct in thinking that, can you just explain why you're doing that?
So we are doing it for the first and the second plenitude, but you're right, we are giving to the second plenitude a little bit more time of aging after disgorging. So it's around 9 months for the first plenitude, the first release, the vintage, 9 months after disgorging, and for the second plenitude it's more than 1 year generally. So that means that our wine, even if they are matured 95% of their time with the lees in the bottle, we need as well a certain time of aging after disgorging, because for two reasons. The first is that the disgorging is kind of shock for the wine. You put a dosage, a liquor, and as well you open the bottle, so the oxygen is entering for the first time after 15 years. So the wine has to restabilize and need times. And then as well because it's interesting to have to let the wine through the process of oxidation, of aging, of cork aging, to let the wine open a little bit, because after those 9 years for the first plenitude, or 15 years, 16 years for the second plenitude of maturation, the wine is built with all the complexity and intensity, but it needs a little bit of cork aging, to reveal and to open its complexity.
Okay, we've just tasted the two wines side by side, starting with the original Dom Pérignon 2000, the original release that is, which has developed very attractively and seems to me very sort of creamy, rich on the mid palate, lovely sort of textural qualities. It's then when we come to taste the P2, we get sort of quite a surprise in terms of sort of extra freshness and
Yeah.
Well, I'd just like you to talk us through that yourself.
I think that the first really reaction we have when we discover and when we test P2 is, you're right, it is the vibrancy. We are very surprised to see, 13, 16, sometimes 20 years old champagne, matured champagne, with such freshness, with such, I would say, energy. Between more than freshness, because there is maturity, there is a lot of maturity, but it is really mixed with this, like you were saying, with this freshness remaining in the wine, and it's created a lot of energy in the wine. And I think a second very important thing we were talking about as well was the way the palate has been, moving through this extra time of maturation on lees. The way the palate has been, growing. There is a building up process really. The game between the yeast, the lees, the wine and the oxygen which is entering slowly in the bottle during all those years is really allowing Dom Pérignon, to be true to the year 2000, to the Dom Pérignon signature, but in a bigger way, with more intensity, with more length and with more density.
And do you see this 2000 vintage, do you see it as being very successful in a P2 version in a decade or so's time as well? Would you expect?
I think that, I'm very pleased because I think that, I'm always saying that Dom Pérignon is a project, work in progress, and that a generation of winemakers have been always trying to improve. Richard is always saying to push the envelope of the wine. It's a way to say that we are still improving and trying to improve and to push the border and the frontiers. And I think you and consumers are with us. And they are going further and further in the understanding and in the discovery of what Dom Pérignon is. So the launch of P2 2000 is really a good opportunity for us and for consumers, to rediscover the 2000 and to progressively to understand the full picture, of what is Dom Pérignon, with the three dimensions of Dom Pérignon: the vintage, because there is always a vintage; the color, because you know that we can do blanc and rosé; and the plenitude. And all those elements are like, dots in a global painting, which is representing Dom Pérignon. So each new plenitude, and for instance today, Dom Pérignon P2 is a way, to understand better, the full picture of Dom Pérignon.
Great, that's excellent. Thank you very much indeed,
Thank
Vincent.
you.
Thank you.